morning. The previous discussion is actually an excellent introduction to my points for today. So I find it very interesting that a year and a half after Draghi released his report, there is not one discussion where it's actually not mentioned. So let me start with that as well. So in his report, Mario Draghi gave a stark diagnosis for Europe. He said that European competitiveness was basically into an existential challenge driven by a widening productivity gap. At Google, we actually view this challenge in the lens of a massive opportunity. We have entered a new era of innovation driven by artificial intelligence. As with transformative technologies like electricity or internet, adoption actually is a journey to transition. In the early stages, businesses naturally focus on foundational investment. They're going to optimize their operation. They're going to train their workforce. And they're also going to new tools, to be more efficient and also to reduce the cost. But the most exciting part is the part which is going to be the swing that follows. Once these technologies are fully integrated, entirely new business models are going to emerge and productivity is going to accelerate rapidly. This kind of evolution is actually nothing new. We've actually seen that, in the past. MIT said that 60% of the jobs of today did not exist 80 years ago. And because we had the internet and the computer that came in. And this is exactly the same pivotal moment we have in Europe at the moment. This is a moment where the hard work of building the strong foundation is actually then going to transit into a period of exponential growth. We can accelerate our path into this next phase, and if we do that, we can actually boost European GDP by 1.2 trillion euros over the next decade. We're deeply committed to helping Europe seize this moment and to take this trillion opportunity. Over the past 20 years, we've invested heavily into Europe's physical infrastructure and digital foundation. We've built 9 data centers, 13 cloud regions, and 6 subsea cables that actually connect Europe to the rest of the world. We combine our infrastructure with cutting-edge AI, and we build sovereign digital solutions that ensure that our customers can drive growth without even sacrificing control and security. But for the physical infrastructure to spark a new wave of innovation, it needs a smooth and agile operating environment. This is why we're having this conversation in Brussels, to move towards an operating environment where simplification, another buzzword that we heard in the previous panel, also is going to become a catalyst for growth. Simplification is not about cutting corners, but actually it's about removing the frictions to boost competitiveness and to unlock the next wave of European innovation. Build innovation and the European champions depends on a seamless ecosystem where friction comes across 3 different layers: the digital rulebook, the physical infrastructure, and a secure ecosystem that supports them. Let me start first with the rulebook. Since 2019, there's been about over 100 digital legislation that have actually come through. And we absolutely understand that, the intentions basically make sense, but the sheer volume of the rules actually complicates scaling for everyone. According to Business Europe, more than 60% of the European companies say that regulatory burden is a primary obstacle to investment. As an example, companies are required to generate multiple detailed reports. Every time there is a new legislation, there is a detailed reporting. And as it was actually said in the first panel, we see that as well. There is a real tremendous opportunity to actually put these reporting cycles together. Just to give you an example, on content, we have 10 different reports with different templates and different timeline. We don't want to cut the reporting, we just want it to make sense. Sometimes we have to put like 25,000 data together just for one service. So we end up with like 720,000 data. And to be honest, I'm not sure anyone actually can read that much thing, and I'm not sure anyone actually can see through, what we're saying. So it's not reports for report. We don't want to have the quantity of the data. We actually need to get to the quality of the insight to actually help the regulator and to help the transparency. But it's also important to understand the unintended consequences of some of this legislation. For instance, I'm going to talk about the DMA, which is about, to open and make a considerable market. But sometimes we need to actually look at the trade-off of some of this legislation, make. So as you know, digital world is a very interconnected ecosystem. And sometimes there can be friction at any point of the value chain. That it means that, when a regulation is going to heavily intervene to favor one specific actor, it's going to create a ripple effect, which is going to basically inevitably disrupt others. We're seeing that at the moment playing out. The current implementation is asking us to over-optimize for large middlemen aggregators at the expense of direct European suppliers, forcing local SMEs to pay high commission, which leads to higher prices. So what does that mean in practice? Because of mandated change for such results, we have direct suppliers like Finnair, which have seen their booking clicks directly decrease by 38%, and local hotels have seen a 27% drop. And it's not just travel. We see the same thing in local businesses, where actually have seen a decrease by 11%. A recent study estimates that this degraded experience actually has an impact for businesses of few billions, which are going to cut into their revenue. And we also need to see, me as a European consumer, we also see that sometimes it is more complicated to get what we want into the search. And actually, the experience takes longer, and you don't always want to get what you want. So there are some trade-offs, but we need to make sure that these trade-offs are also not impacting things like cybersecurity. The regulatory complexity is delaying the launch also of new products, and we enter in dialogue with the regulator, but sometimes it's a reality that our products are coming up to 1 year after they come to other places. So this has an impact, basically, for consumers and for businesses who want to get the latest products to be able to innovate. By default, the digital ecosystem must be agile in order to thrive. Instead, we see that the complexity is actually creating multiple overlapping regulation and is forcing the natural cycle of innovation to adapt constantly to legislative changes. For European startups, that energy is wasted on navigating compliance rather than spent where it belongs, into building the next breakthrough. Since our discussion today focuses on European champions, I want to emphasize that it is critical we get the simplification policy right. The true simplification is actually about addressing the overlaps, not developing another set of rules. Simplifying existing rules is key to ensuring that business in Europe has a clear runway to innovate and grow. This is why we actually strongly welcome the omnibuses package, the next omnibus package, and also the digital fitness check. Because getting the rules right is a first step, but we also need to make sure that we have the energy which is going to power the technology. And that actually brings to my second part, actually on the physical foundation. Today, the processes for powering European infrastructure are actually on the bottleneck. In some European markets, the new facilities have to wait 7 to 13 years just to get a grid connection. At a time where Europe faces existential challenges to become more competitive, a data center built in 6 years is not a competitive advantage, but it is a missed opportunity. The upcoming CADA offers us an opportunity to actually turn this speed into reality. By pairing modernized permitting processes with access to best-in-class cloud services, Europe can actually create an environment where high-speed infrastructure becomes a driver for growth. This is why we strongly support the European Commission grid package. To unlock grid capacity, we need a proactive planning. We must move away from the post office service where you come first and then you basically wait your turn. At the moment, there are some projects which are not ready, which are blocking the pipe, and we need to make sure that the grid process is actually going to help mature projects to come faster. The second point I wanted to make as well is that we need the grid to be smarter, not just to be bigger. When we see that building the grid takes quite some years, if we use technology to enhance the grid, we can improve capacity from 20 to 40% of the existing grid in a matter of months. And this is where technology can really bring a lot of benefits to infrastructure. We committed, of course, to be a good citizen partner in terms of the grid. We want to make long-term investment as well to make sure that we have Europe's clean transition. Our data centers are already some of the most efficient in the world, and today we deliver actually 6 times more computing power per unit than we did 5 years ago. So our modernization is also coming up, and you see the advances we're making our own products. An example as well, we're also sharing the heat which is coming from our data centers to our local communities, doing this, for instance, in Germany and in Finland. Today, we are 84% carbon-free energy across our European operations. And we're still pursuing our ambition to operate our data center on 100% carbon-free energy, 24/7, by 2030. Still have 4 years to go there. If we mobilize grid policies and we leverage private capital, we can build a physical backbone Europe needs to achieve its competitiveness on energy security. So I talk about the rule book, I talk about the physical grid, and now I want to talk about the third part, which is the security and resilience of Europe's digital ecosystem. To scale globally, the European businesses need an ecosystem that is built seamlessly and is going to be giving them the world-class tools, but also the rock-solid security. We must avoid the sovereignty paradox, where restrictions intended to protect a nation actually weaken it, by denying European companies access to the most advanced innovations. This is why we continue to build a deep structural integrations with a lot of our European technology partners. So we work with Thales in France, with Telecom Italia, with T-Systems in Germany, and Proximus in Belgium. And with that, with them, we deliver a trusted sovereign cloud solution. We also provide infrastructure to homegrown European champions like Mistral. But we must remember that an ecosystem is only as strong as its defenses. As AI lowers the barriers for global cyber threats, European champions cannot scale if they cannot defend their business models resiliently. By adopting AI, we leverage the necessary speed and scale to stay resilient. We are now deploying AI to protect critical infrastructure against cyber threats. I was listening to the president of the Bundesbank, and he says that they have 5,000 cyber attacks per minute. So imagine the scale of what we need to do to protect, all the different organizations in Europe. We created an AI model called Mender, which actually discovers autonomously all the problems, that come up with the software, and they actually erase it automatically before anyone actually discovers any other issue. And we're also partnering to fortify our shared digital infrastructure with partners like NATO JATEC, with the UK Ministry of Defense, or the German Armed Forces. In Ukraine, we've helped the government to build DIHA application, which enables Ukrainians to access critical services securely, without having to transmit sensitive personal information outside of the ministry secure platform. But the ecosystem is only as strong as the people who run it. We know that AI adoption across the EU remains uneven. 55% of large enterprises are embracing AI, but only 17% of SMEs are. So less than 1 out of 5. The biggest hurdle isn't the lack of access to the technology, because it's actually a very easily accessed technology. But of course, the real human challenges of having to actually upskill ourselves, all of us in this room, but also navigating organizational challenge. We're committed to being Europe's partner in this transition. Over the last 10 years, we have trained 21 million digital people, and also the companies, people in digital skills, maybe better, through large and small projects. But to meet this moment, we must move from digital basics to actually AI fluency. This is why, just last week in Riga, we launched the AI Works for Europe. Through this initiative, we are partnering with the public sector, non-profit, universities, employers to help European workers and students gain AI essential skills. We are offering 30 million in support of programs for the students and the workers to be able to develop the tools in the future that they will need. And secondly, we're making our new Google AI professional certificates, which I invite you to go on Coursera to try as well, available in 10 different languages. This hands-on practical training will ensure small businesses and workers can develop their fluency in AI in their local language with their own cultural context. As Draghi and others have argued, Europe is at a crossroad. If we can build a system that rewards growth with a simple rule book, if we can modernize our energy grid, And if we can embrace a secure, open partnership, then we will provide European companies with the exact tools and the ultimate shield they need to scale, innovate, and win. We're committed to Europe's success. We are ready to work alongside with you to build that competitive, secure, and prosperous future. Thank you very much.